It started quietly, almost too quietly. On a warm summer evening, I sat out back by the pond behind my house, listening to the bullfrogs and crickets. The land behind my property was wooded, sloped, and part of a watershed that drained into my pond through an old beaver dam I'd built years ago. That dam, in many ways, was symbolic. It held back excess water, protected my fields, and gave me a sense of control over my land. I never imagined that little dam would become the battleground in my nightmare with the HOA. For decades before this fight, my property sat adjacent to a subdivision controlled by HOA enforcement. We had amicable relations, neighbors waiving yard maintenance rules, occasional complaints about trees or fences. But one day, a surveyor told me HOA had quietly acquired easement rights behind my back, claiming I granted access in some revised covenant no one told me about. Within months, contractors rolled in, bulldozers started clearing, and bulldozing crews began building foundations for 35 new homes, all encroaching into my land, right behind my pond, right along the path of my water flow. When I saw the clearing, my heart sank. Trees fell, earth moved, heavy equipment roared across land I had always maintained. I visited the HOA board meeting, asked them kindly, "By what authority are you building on my land?" They waved charts, maps, and legalese, but no valid deed. They claimed a joint access agreement and easement access, but when I requested the document, they had nothing. They showed me a map with dotted lines and signed signatures and missing parcels. Their engineers said water flow adjustments would be made, drainage installed, and no harm would come. I wasn't convinced, so I warned them. I sent letters via certified mail. I sent survey maps and property deeds showing I owned 100 feet behind a pond. I asked neighbors who had lived there longer if they remembered any granting of land rights. None did. Every record, every map, every deed pointed back to me. Still, the machines kept moving. Foundations were poured. Soil was scraped. Land was cut. The HOA shrugged off every complaint. They claimed authority they had no legal ground to enforce. That's when I realized I needed a decisive move. If they were going to waterboard my land with development, I'd meet them at the water's edge. I studied the dam, the channels, the water table. I spoke with a hydrologist and an engineer. We strategized. What if I temporarily released controlled water flow? Not to destroy, but to expose their foundations, to force them to confront the damage. The HOA thought they were playing in territory where I was passive. They didn't know I could turn the floodgates into justice. Over a weekend, I prepared. I reinforced riverbanks, set up cameras, got permissions to adjust water within limits, and timed my move. On Monday, heavy rains upstream had raised the pond level. I waited until mid-afternoon, then quietly opened the dam gates a little, slowly, methodically. Water surged downstream. At first it trickled, then it gathered momentum. It flowed down the channel toward the new subdivision site. I watched from a distance through binoculars as saturation reached the freshly laid foundations. By late afternoon, the water lapped at the perimeters of those homes under construction. Sweat poured on my brow. The foundations, bare concrete, no waterproofing yet, stood vulnerable. The builders looked up in panic. Construction lights flickered. Trucks backed off. The engineers who had boasted about drainage now stood in panting shock. Neighbors across the hillside heard the gurgling flow, looked toward my land, and whispered. That day, the HOA board scrambled. They sent letters, demanded injunctions, threatened lawsuits. But the videotaped footage spoke louder. I had every angle, before and after water levels, soil erosion, cracks forming at foundations, workers fleeing the site. In court, I showed the evidence. The local judge watched the video of water cascading over the site. He questioned the HOA's supposed easement maps. He asked where their sign agreements were. The HOA president sputtered. Their engineer admitted their erosion control was incomplete and that they had ignored warnings about water pressure. The judge ruled in my favor. All construction halted, foundations removed, and I was awarded damages for the encroachment. The HOA's attempted land grab collapsed underwater in law. Today, the dam stands closed again, the pond stable. The land behind remains mine. No houses encroach. Machinery is gone. The HOA board meets under full scrutiny now. Sign minutes, member notification, and public record audits. And when I walk that land now, I feel vindicated. They tried to build where they had no right. I forced them to face the water they underestimated. If there's one lesson I learned, it's this: power lies not in intimidation or maps drawn by shady hands. It lies in documents, in record, in timing, and sometimes in turning the very water your land commands into your strongest defense. Stand your ground. Study your maps. Be ready to act, because when they try to build on what's yours, sometimes you must let your land speak. That was my war with the HOA. And believe me, this fight, it'll echo for years. Subscribe if you believe HOA overreach should be exposed. This is just the beginning.